Hey, how's it? Aloha. Good to see you.
Nice to see you,
How are
sir.
you?
Good, thank you.
Good, good.
Mr. President, we want to know, will your presidential library be in Honolulu, and how difficult is it for you to choose between Chicago and the place of your birth?
Well, this isn't an issue that I've made a decision on. I just got reelected. I've got all kinds of things I'm supposed to be doing as president. Obviously, Honolulu is my birthplace. It's the place where I grew up, and I've got so many friends and fond memories, and it helped to shape me. So, I'd like to find a way that after my presidency, that connection remains. But I live in Chicago now, and that's where I, grew up professionally. So, it is a tough choice, but it's not one that I've made yet.
Can we expect at least an annex or a little portion of this?
All I know is that folks back home, back in Hawaii, have been very generous in talking about how much they'd like to figure out a way to participate post-presidency, and I'm flattered by that, and I'm going to look at every option. But right now, my big job is to make sure we're putting people back to work and strengthening the American economy, including the economy back in Honolulu.
Of course. Thinking about, of course, down the road, your retirement, do you plan to buy a place in Honolulu?
Well,
perhaps Kailua.
Here's what I guarantee is I'm going to be spending more time post-presidency in Hawaii than I've been able to do as president. And look, I love the place. The girls love the place. Michelle, we've been going back every Christmas now since my daughters were born, and so that's what they have memories of. I still have really close friends there, and it's just a wonderful place. And frankly, it's getting harder and harder for me to put up with winter. So, we're going to find some way to make sure that we spend as much time there as possible. And my sister and my brother-in-law and my two nieces still live there as well, so that's an important family attachment.
You mentioned your daughters. I know they go there every Christmas with the family. It's different to vacation there than it is to grow up there. What do you hope, as someone who is born there, to get out of those visits, that they get out of those visits?
I hope, and I think this has happened, that they see how people of different cultures and backgrounds can respect each other and grow up in an environment where everybody's accepted. And I think that's always been the great strength of Hawaii, and that's been a great strength of the United States, is our diversity. And obviously at a time when, by the time they're older, even more than today, the center of gravity in the world is going to be shifting to the Asia-Pacific region. For them to appreciate the influence of Asia and the Pacific Islands in terms of our culture and our heritage, I think is really important. So the other thing is that it's good to get them outside. When they're in Hawaii, they don't play videos or sit inside as much, because why would you want to waste any 82-degree days?
Do you teach them how to body surf?
Yeah, they've actually been taking some surfing lessons the last few times they've been out there, and they do pretty good. So, they're still not as good as their dad, but
We never get to see you there anymore. We don't see you at Sandy's like we'd like to.
Secret Service doesn't let me go to Sandy's, but the beach over at the Kaneohe Marine Base is beautiful. It's spectacular, and frankly, I didn't know it was there as nice as it was when I was growing up, because we never got to go. We used to go to Bellows, where we could get sort of a pass, but didn't get a chance to see this beach. It's spectacular, and that's the girls are getting used to Hawaiian waves, which are a little different from the waves around here.
You're pretty tough, yeah.
They are, absolutely.
I know we're here to talk about Fix It First, and I want to ask you, how will Hawaii specifically benefit from this policy? And do you actually expect this to get funded, given how difficult things are here in Washington? Isn't this just a second stimulus with another name?
Well, no, look, historically, rebuilding our roads, our bridges, that's not a Democratic or a Republican issue. That's what we do. That's part of how we continue to grow our economy and make sure we've got world-class infrastructure. So the idea behind Fix It First is simply to say we've got structurally deficient roads and bridges all across the country, including in Hawaii. Let's make sure that we're fixing those, make sure that they're safe, make sure that they're world-class. We can relieve congestion, we can put people back to work right now, and it'll benefit our economy over the long term. And And I think that if we can break through some of the just constant partisan focus here in Washington and think about what's best for the country, this is an example of something that we can get done. We can attract some private dollars through bond programs or infrastructure banks to help finance it. And we can get about 80% of what needs to get done. But it requires congressional action, and I'm going to keep on poking and prodding them to see if we can get it done.
You mentioned the Marine base. I know you've had a lot of contact with the families there. When you think about the sequester and what could happen to all of the military families in Hawaii and also all of the civilians who are supported by the base activity, what goes through your mind, and are you keeping them in mind in trying to break through these negotiations?
Absolutely. Look, it's one of our biggest priorities. We do not need these automatic, mindless spending cuts that could hurt our economy, hurt our military readiness, cut things like education or mental health services that are vital to so many people. What we need to do is to look thoughtfully and say, which programs don't we need? Let's cut those out. Let's close tax loopholes for the well-connected and the well-off that most people don't benefit from. We can reduce our deficit in a balanced, responsible way. This is what I've proposed. I've been very specific about it. What's holding us back right now is Republicans aren't willing to even consider closing these corporate tax loopholes and special interest tax breaks in order to reduce the deficit to replace some of the cuts that could have an impact on military families and others. And I hope they reconsider while they're back home. Hopefully they're hearing from their constituents, and we'll be able to negotiate a fair approach that helps this economy continue to grow.
I know you're short on time, but I got to ask you one more viewer question, and that is, what local foods do you love and miss, and can you speak any Pidgin?
Well, I can speak Pidgin, but I can't do it on air. And in terms of food, I'll tell you, whenever I go back, obviously we always get shave ice. The sushi and sashimi are just better in Hawaii because the ocean's right there. A good plate lunch. Korean barbecue. I got a pretty long list.
What about mochi crunch? We brought you some.
I look forward to having some. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Good.
Appreciate it.
Aloha. All right, all good?
All set, sir.
All right. The wine girl stole a little extra time, didn't she? Taking advantage of